Hey everyone, and welcome back to Resilience in Mind. The 2024 US presidential election is finally over, and today we're diving into a big question on everyone's mind. Why didn't Kamala Harris win? We'll be breaking down the key reasons from campaign strategy to public perception, and what it all means for the future of the US politics. So grab a seat, hit that like button, and let's get into it. First, let's set the stage. Kamala Harris, who served as vice president under Joe Biden, was one of the most talked about candidates going into the 2024 race with high expectations. As a historic candidate who was the first woman, first Black, and first South Asian vice president, her campaign had high expectations. Many hoped that she would continue the Biden administration's policies while building her own unique platform. But despite her credentials, the election didn't swing in her favor. So what happened? Win. Let's break down the major challenges she faced in this election. First off, low approval ratings. The elephant in the room was her approval ratings. Throughout her time as vice president, Harris faced challenges in gaining widespread approval across the political spectrum. Her approval ratings were often below those of the other top Democrats. Polls shows that she struggled with gaining high approval across the political spectrum, especially among independents and some moderate Democrats. Although many voters respected her achievements, some critics felt she hadn't done enough to stand out independently from the Biden administration. This affected her momentum as she entered the race. The Democratic Party felt blindsided by her announcement to run for presidency because they felt as if they didn't elect her to be their party's nominee, thus ultimately affecting her in the polls. Point 2. Economic and policy criticism. Economic issues were at the center of this election too, with concerns over inflation, housing costs, and overall economic stability. Many voters were looking for change. Harris' campaign faced tough questions on these issues, but some voters felt her platform didn't address their concerns directly enough to secure their vote. For example, in this interview that she did with Reverend Al Sharpton, when she was asked about her economic policies, she never addressed her policies. She simply attacked the other side with no clear understanding of what policies she planned to implement and how she would implement said policies. This played a major part in why she lost the majority of the working class.
Black vote is important, but Georgia's important.
Yes.
Wisconsin's important.
Yes.
And how do you, as you go, dealing with your economic message? Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that call my radio show that says, well, what happens, how does this impact my pocket?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean, Reverend Al, with inflation reduction. I don't know what infrastructure means.
Right.
Share with our viewers on what has impacted them and what a President Harris will do that understands what needs to go in their pocket, not the Beltway language.
So it's a very legitimate and important question that voters asked that we should respond to on the affirmative without waiting for the question. So, for example, how will it affect individuals? Talk about what I intend to build, which is an opportunity economy, which in large part understands the vast majority of Americans have ambition, aspirations, they have an incredible work ethic, they have dreams, but not necessarily access to the resources that allow them the opportunity to achieve their goals. Unlike my opponent, who thinks about the world differently, I think informed in large part by the way he experienced life, having been served $400 million on a virtual silver platter, which he then filed bankruptcy 6 times. My opponent, who, when he thinks about tax policy, it's about cutting taxes for the richest among us, billionaires and the biggest corporations, who can afford, by the way, to pay their fair share. His plan for what I call a Trump sales tax would be at least a 20% tax on everyday necessities, which economists have estimated the average American will pay $4,000 more a year. So when asked this question about how will this affect my life in terms of a voter worrying about the fact that, look, price of groceries still too high. I get it, they get it. And what are we doing to help them actually get through life in a way that they're not just getting by but getting ahead? We have to have specific policies that do that. And that is what I offer under what I call an opportunity economy approach. But Donald Trump is offering something very different, including what he's talking about in Project 2025. And I'll tell you, from the biggest rallies I do to church services, people know what's in Project 2025. That's right. They know that it would allow corporations to basically stop protecting the right of workers to have overtime pay. What it would do to take away the independence of the Department of Justice. And as we know, he intends to use it to attack his political enemies. People are very concerned by what Project 2025 would do, which is to get rid of public servants who have dedicated their lives to doing public service and instead putting loyalists in these various agencies so that he can have them bend to his will instead of do the work that is in the public trust.
In this ABC News article, it states, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders issues a scathing statement on what he called the Democratic Party's disastrous campaign after Vice President Kamala Harris lost to the presidential election to former President Donald Trump. The Independent, who caucuses with the Democrats, said it should come to no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned the working class would find that the working class has abandoned them. First it was the white working class, and now it's the Latino and Black workers as well. Sanders continues in his statements, while the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people who are angry, and they want change, and they are right. Point 3. Accusations of pandering and identity politics. One of the most talked about criticisms Harris faced was around the perception of pandering and focus on identity politics. Many of her speeches highlighted her own experiences as a woman of color and the importance of representation, which some voters found empowering, but others saw it as an emphasizing identity over policies. While Harris supporters argued this brought essential diversity to the race, some critics felt that the campaign relied too heavily on these themes without offering enough specific solutions on broader issues.
Are Black and Hispanic voters persuaded by identity politics or actual policies? We hit the streets of the Bronx to find out.
She's using her color. I thought that Martin Luther King said the color wasn't the issue. I thought it was the content of our character that we were supposed to be recognized for. But if she's going to keep running on that color, she's going to have a misconception about how Black people really roll.
If you bring somebody into office that looks like you, but then continues to detriment your community, what was that for? But if you choose somebody who can raise your community, then you chose the right one.
Yes. Wait,
so,
who do you choose?
Personally, I choose Trump.
I'm looking for who I think is more qualified to run the country. That's all I'm looking at.
Black Latinos are starting to be a little bit more critical. They're fed up of their hard-earned money going to illegal, undocumented people.
Kamala Harris did not do a good job on the border because, from what I know, a lot of people were coming from the other side and doing a lot of bad things to what we call home.
I think she's not a good candidate for president because she's with Joe Biden for the past 2 years, a wreck up in New York, you know.
Colors don't matter, man.
Right, they don't.
Ask God, man.
That's true. So what do you think about a candidate that uses their race as a selling point? Do you think
that's some weird
That's weird.
You lost already, 2024. If you racist today, you lost. Nobody going against Trump.
It's not about race, it's about what they provide for the society, is what they could do for the community.
With her putting a lot of Black Americans in jail for the marijuana, they're not really going for her.
We also got people's thoughts on Trump's recent comments on Harris's ethnicity.
She was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was Black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn Black, and now she wants to be known as Black.
Yeah, she was Hindu when it suited her purpose, you know, and now that she's running, the Black vote suits her purpose. So, like Trump said, you know, now she's Black.
Donald Trump is absolutely right. Her mother is Indian, her father is Irish Hindu, and she's always presented herself as Indian.
What do you think about Trump saying Kamala Harris is Black? I thought she was Indian. She was saying she was Indian.
That's my response. Trump is an open book, yo. Facts.
That's just Trump being Trump. I don't believe he's racist. I don't even think he has a racist bone in his body.
Trump said that Kamala Harris always portrayed herself to be Indian, and now all of a sudden she's saying she's black.
Right? Nah, she's really Indian. She just want our support. She trying to snatch our support away from Trump. But that's not how that's going down.
Reporting for Newsmax in the Bronx, New York, I'm Kara Castronova.
Some people were turned off by the idea that people were simply voting for her because she was a woman and she was black, which is controversial in itself because some people felt as if she was only claiming her black heritage to gain popularity within the black community. People wanted Harris to stand on something and make her positions known. They could care less about her being a woman or being black.
Would you vote for?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm going to just be real honest with this. She's a black woman.
Yeah. Because they skin folk, not Kim folk.
I think it goes back to what somebody was saying, where it's not voting for someone, but majority will vote for somebody else just
Hold on. Let me line this out.
I think majority.
Is it only because she a black woman?
Yeah.
Let put Sex Array in the office.
She's not black, friend. She's not black.
Red is wait. Let's just say it don't matter.
Isn't she half black?
Well, listen.
Why
Whether she half black,
vote for her?
Hold on. Let's have this conversation. Whether she's half black, or
she's half of two of the most prosecuted.
It doesn't even matter. None of that matters. Why only because of that?
Because I would love to see a woman in office.
Oh, why?
I want to give us a shot. I mean, how many presidents have we had that were all men? Like, let's.
All right, vote for Hillary.
Hey, I'm so broken, bro. Honestly, like on everything, on my father's grave, I am so broken right now, man.
Why?
Do you not see how that's a bad idea?
Elaborate.
Okay, so we're in 3 proxy wars with some of the most powerful leaders in the world. She failed at the border, in which we have an estimation of 15 to 20 million people illegally into this country. That is literally overtaking and bankrupting Chicago to the tune of over $400 million per year, and they are in a deficit. Oakland is going out of business. San Francisco, ditto. California, $65 billion deficit. New York, they're literally cutting trash, in which they are the rattiest, dirtiest city, and they've taken up resources as far as free healthcare, free hotels to the tune of $600 a day. They're literally taking over your schools. Your taxpayer dollars are going to fund the migrant crisis. She was supposed to be in charge of this. We have a failing economy. Every single day I see people getting on the internet talking about $30 an hour is the new minimum wage because inflation is fucking out of control. At one point, it was at almost 10%, depending on what city that you in. She has no policy, no record to stand on. One of the biggest things that she did in her career was lock up more black men than ever before. But we sitting here and vote her in office on identity politics. The very person that she was under as far as the president of the United States of America, she called him racist during a debate, which shows you how fake she is. And the only thing that we can stand on from a policy perspective is whether or not she's black and she's a woman. We did that during the Obama administration, and he didn't do anything for black people. As a matter of fact, y'all complain because the only person that he did, or the only group of people that he really stood for, is the alphabet community, and that's his landmark thing that he's still standing on today. So the only thing that we have to stand on is identity politics. That shit didn't work with Tiffany Henyard in Dolton, Illinois. It didn't work with Karen Bass. It didn't work with Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. It didn't work with Brandon Johnson that then took over her position in Chicago. It didn't work with Andre Dickens in Atlanta. It didn't work with Eric Adams in New York. It doesn't work across the country. Every single Democratic city is a hellhole. And we sitting here talking about identity politics?
My 4th point. Competition from opponents. Finally, her competition in the race proved formidable. On the Republican side, her opponent ran a tight campaign with clear messaging that resonated with many voters, particularly on issues like crime, the economy, and national security. Meanwhile, on the Democratic side, a couple of strong candidates emerged, dividing support within the party. Now, let's talk about her strategy. Harris focused heavily on continuing many of Biden's administration policies while adding her own ideas around social justice, climate change, and healthcare reform. These positions align with the Democratic values. Some independents felt that these policies didn't tackle their immediate concern or address their frustration with the government as a whole. In a close race, every undecided voter matters. Now, there's also a bigger picture to consider. Over recent years, voter demographics have shifted, and certain groups of people have changed their political alignments. Younger voters, for example, increasingly support more progressive policies. On the other hand, some working class voters shifted to conservative candidates, driven by social and economic concerns and a desire for change. Harris' focus on the identity based issues was well received by many in her base, but didn't resonate as much with these shifting voter groups. Harris' campaign had an appeal to a broad and diverse base, which proved challenging. Now let's talk about media and public perception. The role of the media can't be overlooked. Harris received heavy media scrutiny with coverage that sometimes leaned more in her background and personality than her policies. While her historic candidacy made her a media focal point, some voters grew weary of what they saw as an emphasis on her personal background over concrete policy plans. Fair or not, this impacted public perception and became a deciding factor for many voters.
He has a history in California, a significant history in California.
Get in there, Tom. What is it?
Talking about the Hawk Tour?
Yeah.
I'm talking about everything from the three strikes law and what it did to an entire generation of African-American youth on minor drug possession charges that those of us that lived in California think is absolutely despicable what happened to that and what happened to African-American families, to the open affair she had, which got her on the political on-ramp.
Willie Brown?
With Willie Brown.
Exactly. Listen, don't be
in California, man, she was known as a girl with the most durable shoulder blades in politics.
Nice. Whoa. Hey.
So what's next for Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party? Although this election didn't end in victory for Harris, she remains a prominent figure in American politics. The 2024 election brought forward the need for the party to address broader economic and social concerns while also finding a balance on how to approach its diverse and identity in its messaging. The 2024 election highlighted the need for fresh ideas, bold leadership, and it will be interesting to see how the party adapts in the years to come. We'll be watching closely to see how these lessons shape the party strategies in the future. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments, what do you think is the biggest factor in the 2024 election? If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe for more. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.